Talk to us about what college life was like, especially as a sheltered church girl.
We essentially went to the clubs Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, almost every night. And I remember this guy walked by me, and I remember he smelled so good. And I remember he was so tall and dark and fine. He stopped and started talking to me. We leave, one thing led to another, and so we go upstairs. We start to have sex. I asked him to stop. I was like, can you go get a condom? And he's like, no problem. When we're done, when I go in the bathroom, I see an unopened box of condoms. And I clocked it, but it didn't register that to look like in the trash to see if there was a wrapper.
How long after having sex with him did the symptoms start?
Part of me wants to say a week and a half, but I'm going to say 2 weeks. Okay. From that moment forward, my health just deteriorated. So I remember having night sweats, fainting. I'd pass out in the shower. I had gotten so accustomed to fainting, I could control it. So my off-campus roommate, she picked me up, took me to the emergency room. But sure enough, I was pregnant. So now I got to deal with that. So I go into the doctor's, not like a medical room, in her actual office with all her degrees and her family photos. And so she sits me down and she's explaining why, but when a baby is born, they literally have their mother's antibodies. And because of that, it shows that my daughter looks like she has HIV because I'm HIV positive. And so she tells me that, and she goes, were you aware of your HIV status before your pregnancy? And I was like, this is the first time I've ever heard this.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Talk with Koiya. I am your host, Koiya, and as you know, this podcast is brought to you by Talk, Test, Treat. If you are in the Central Florida area and looking for a place to get tested, visit www.talktestcfl.com. Today, we have a very special guest with us, no other. Now, first, let me tell you, this has been a long time coming. We have scheduled this 2 times prior to this one, and those times ended up falling through, so a third time is a charm, and I am so excited to be here with Kamaria.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, as I was saying, there were 2 other times where this was supposed to go down, but it was just not in God's plan for it to happen then.
No, and now we're here, and it's going to be divine.
We are here, and I'm excited about it. This episode is in celebration of Long-Term Survivors Awareness Day, which is June 5th. And you are someone who has been living with for how long?
Let's see, this year will be 22 years.
22 years.
Wow, yeah.
So you are the perfect person for this episode.
Yeah, thank you.
We start every Talk with Koiya episode with the Talk with Koiya card game. So I'm going to ask you to pull a card, read it aloud, and then answer it.
All right, I'll take one off the top.
Okay.
And then cut the deck.
I like that.
Take one out the middle. Just read.
Yep.
Both of them?
Yep, one at a time, and then answer.
When did you first hear about HIV/AIDS? Tell us that story. Oh, wow. Yeah. So I think it was 3rd grade. I came home from school after hearing about Magic Johnson. A nurse came in to talk to us about, I guess, sexual health. I'm not quite sure. We were in 3rd grade. And I came home and asked my mom if HIV is a blood-borne illness, which is how we were told. How come everyone doesn't have it if everyone has blood? My mom's response was, you're protected by the blood of Jesus. Don't worry about it. And I mean, I think that was the best answer as a mom she could give her 9-year-old.
Of course.
And so that locked in my head for the rest of my life because that was the only education I really got. Anything outside of that was just mostly focused on pregnancy prevention. And I never connected the two, that you could get HIV through sex. My other connection was hearing about orphans in Africa. And so I'm thinking, well, they must have been born with it. So that still didn't connect sex to me because I'm also telling people I'm the product of abstinence-only education, which if you don't tell the whole facts, you have limited knowledge of how to prevent it. And I took that limited knowledge off into college, and I'll go on more to that and later. But yeah, that was my first time hearing about it, and that was the education I received. The other question is, why is it uncommon to talk about HIV openly? Why is it uncommon? That's a loaded question.
That it is.
I mean, there's lots of reasons. I can speak from my experience. There's a lot of shame, a lot of stigma, a lot of judgment, a lot of uncertainty of how people are going to treat you. Even if you have a relative that passes away from complications of HIV, the language is like they died from cancer, or they died from something that wasn't related to HIV. People don't connect the dots. So there's just a lot of secrecy, but then people still know it. So I don't know everyone's why. I just know it in my family. I think it was a lot of like religious shielding. That it was a punishment. It's associated with being gay, and if you didn't want that association, then you just didn't talk about it. So it's this multi-layered, stigmatized conversation that I feel we've come a long way since the 80s, but also I look around in the current political landscape that we're in, and we, in some spaces, have not made the strides that we need to.
Very, very true. Very true. And as someone who has been living with this for 22 years, as you said, I'm sure you have saw the waves of it happen.
Yeah.
So, okay, yeah. Like I said, this episode is in support of HIV Long-Term Survivors
Yeah.
Awareness Day. And before we get there, I want to start with just the story of you growing up. What was young Kamaria like?
Young Kamaria was very shy, very sheltered, but really quirky. I'm the daughter of a disabled Army veteran, single mother, raised me in the house with my grandmother. I have an older sister, but we're 11 years apart, so I grew up as an only child. So I read a lot. I was always had my nose in a book. I camped out at the library all the time. I wanted to save the world. I tried to start it was a club around like Earth Day. I forgot the name of it. But I wanted to get my community to recycle. I remember being in the chorus. I still know all the songs from this Earth Day recital that we had to do. And that was like my first time like even recognizing what advocacy looked like. But I mean, I didn't have the word for it. I think I was in like 4th grade when I was doing that. In middle school, I was still quirky and sheltered. Went to a magnet school for the first time. Met my first best friend. Started understanding like what it was like to be black. I was in a school with a lot of other kids that didn't look like me. So I navigated that, and also had some trauma in my young life. My mother has PTSD, so I've witnessed her navigating that. But now as an adult, I've realized what I've witnessed has taught me how to like cope and be in community and show up for other people. I try to take things I've experienced as a child into the work that I do now and the life that I live now. My grandmother and I, my mother's mother, were very close. Even when I told her my diagnosis, she had my grandmother had a 3rd grade education, so her response was, "You're still my knothead. Now go take out the trash." That was the end of the conversation.
Wow.
And it wasn't that she didn't want to talk about it. That was just, all right, it is what it is. God's got you. And it was also, she didn't understand, so asking questions just wasn't her thing. Just let's keep living life, keep trusting God, and keep it moving. And I moved around a lot within Florida. So I was born in Arizona, lived in Maryland briefly, lived in Atlanta briefly, experienced some family stuff, went back to Arizona. I've been here since I was 7. So a lot happened to me before I was 7. And I've been here, been in Polk County ever since. And people have asked me, would I ever change any of the things that have happened to me, especially my diagnosis, and as much as I have like sad moments and hard things that I've contemplated, that would have been permanent solutions versus pushing through, I wouldn't change a thing because it would change who I am now. And I have worked really hard to love me today. So, little Kamaria, I hope I'm making her proud.
And I'm sure you are. So bouncing around a lot, finally ending up back in Polk County, but then you decide to go off to college to FAMU. Talk to us about what college life was like, especially as a sheltered church girl.
The first semester, well, spring semester was fine. That summer I turned 19. And that's when I guess I started feeling myself a little bit more and was comfortable with being in the clubs. We essentially went to the clubs Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, almost every night.
Okay.
I was also privileged to have a schedule where I didn't have early morning classes. And then around midterms, we had gone to this club, one of my favorites. And I remember this particular night, I just felt, I don't know, I was getting burned out on clubs. And I don't remember what was happening specifically. I know it was something back home, and my mind was really on that. I really wanted to be home, but also was glad that I wasn't home now remembering what it was, dealing with what my mom was going through. So I remember being at the club, and I just wanted to drink and chill. And so I kind of just hung out in like after you get your hand stamped, there's like a foyer, then there's the bar, and then there's the club. I kind of just hung out in the foyer area. So I was just holding up the wall, hanging out, keeping my eye on my friends, because I was the mom of the group, even though I was the shortest, so I really couldn't see people. But keeping my eye on everyone. And I remember this guy walked by me, and I remember he smelled so good. And I remember he was so tall and dark and fine. And I just looked at him as he walked by, and I kind of just leaned up against the wall, and I watched where he went. I was trying to see who he was with and to see if he was making his way towards my friends. He didn't. He ended up coming back to, like, leave, but he stopped and started talking to me. And so we had a conversation. He asked for my number. And in that moment, just to, like, also explain, like, technology-wise how far along this was, how long ago this was, campus phone numbers, you only gave out the last 4 digits because everybody had the same prefix.
Okay.
So if you didn't really want someone to have your number, you would just make up random 1, 2, 3, 4. That's my number. So that's normally what I did. But him, for some reason, I was like, he's not really going to call me. So I gave him my actual number and didn't think anything else of it. He put it down in what's that called? Sidekick? Something that slid open. I don't remember.
Sidekick.
Yeah, I was like, it was something that slid open. He took it down in that, left with his friends, and then my friends made their way to me because they saw him talking to me. So, of course, they hit me with all the questions. Who was that? And all of this. I was like, don't worry about it. Mind your business. And so we left. That was into that night. And I didn't think anything else of him. I just remember maybe a week later, me and my roommate were in the room studying. Neither of us have our own transportation. And we're in Tallahassee. And we both equally lived 4 hours away. I won't say where she lived, but she didn't live in Polk County. She comes to me. She had left the room and came back in. She goes, hey, remember this guy? She describes this person she met some time ago. And she's like, yeah, well, he wants to go. I don't remember where they went, but they wanted to leave. Like, it was like a Wednesday night. And I was like, okay, are you sure? And she's like, yeah, we'll be back in the morning. It's like, where in the world? All right, girl. So we had a system. She gave me the instructions because she knew certain dudes were going to be calling to bring food, to give her whatever she asked for. And so I had, like, a schedule and let her know, like, yeah, okay, I'll be in the room. I was going to be studying. I had no plans. Something clicked when she left, though. I got an attitude. I remember sitting there saying, and I always tell people this, words have power, especially if you're in a place where you don't understand your power. And I remember saying, I don't care who calls me. I don't care what they want to do. I want to have a story to tell her when she gets back. And the key word for me there was saying, I don't care. I should have cared. Not even 5 minutes later, the room phone rings. And I'm thinking it's for my roommate, so I answer, and I immediately recognize the voice. And it was Tall, Dark, Fine from the club. And I intentionally never say his name. He gave me a nickname, and his nickname it's a combination of his first and last name, and it's very common. So I don't say it because of stigma. I don't say it also because I don't know if that was his real name. And so he starts talking. I don't give him time to remind me who he is. I was like, "What you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm just riding around." I was like, "Okay, well, I'll be ready in 30 minutes. Whatever party or whatever you're doing, I want to go." He's like, "For real?" I was like, "Yeah." And so sure enough, I got dressed. I remember exactly what I had on. I had a long sleeve purple shirt, black flare leg jeans, Skechers. God help me.
Skechers were in then, though.
They were in then. They were really cute. And I had just had my hair done in micro braids. I had never had my hair braided before. All of this is important for later. Alicia Keys had just come out at this time, so it was the style to wear the scarf with the big hoop earrings, Jill Scott vibes.
Yes.
So that was my look. And so remember the side access door to the basement is where I walked out. That door led to the set, which was where everybody hung out on campus to either wait for their food, just hang out and talk, or it was just the social area. And so I go out, and I'm looking around, and I kind of just find a spot to hang out. And I keep looking because where I'm standing, there's the set is also a cobblestone street because that's where our buses would come. And across the street were more people hanging out, but that was usually where people parked, or that's where the delivery cars would be. And so after a while, I'm like, he's really taking a long time. He told me where it was. I mapped in my head how long that should take. Remember, I don't have a cell phone. I do, I just don't have free minutes to use.
Gotcha, because that was the thing. You had to buy the minutes back then.
You had to buy the minutes, or you had to wait till 7 o'clock. And at that time, because me and my mom were on the same plan,
Oh, yeah.
I only used it for emergencies. So I had the phone on me. I just didn't. How we're so attached to them today, I was not that attached to my phone. And so he didn't even have that number. So I look up and I see this little pickup truck, and it has a pizza thing on the top of it. And it had been just sitting there. No one had come up to it, and no one had got out of it. And I was like, that's weird. I wonder, that can't be. But maybe he was working. No big deal. So I don't have the best vision, and this is also at night. So I'm squinting. And finally he opens the door, and I see him get out. But he opened the passenger door. And so I was like, you have time to go back inside. He won't know it's you. You have time to run. That was red flag number 1. I instead walked up to him. We hugged. I looked around him as we hugged to see who the driver was. It's this random white guy I've never seen before.
Okay.
So I'm really confused. But I get in the truck. And so I'm in between this person I've never met and this guy I just met. And off we go. And so for anybody who knows about Tallahassee, it's separated. Well, FAMU and FSU are separated essentially by a railroad track. And when you cross a certain street or you cross the railroad track that you're on FSU side. And so when he crossed over to FSU side, I'm like, kind of far away. But all right, I want to have fun. I'm going to have fun. No big deal. And so we get to this house party. We'll get to a house, and there's people inside. And red flag number 2, I really feel like God was trying to warn me. There were these kids on a couch playing with the Etch-a-Sketch. This is 2001. No big deal, but college kids playing with the Etch-a-Sketch is kind of weird.
Yeah.
Not only were they playing on the Etch-a-Sketch, they were drawing an elaborate picture of the Twin Towers.
Oh, wow.
And a plane crashing into it.
Oh, wow. Was this before or after?
No, this was right after. This was a week or 2 after. I didn't name that, but there was a lot of anxiety around. So that I think that was one of the reasons why my roommate left, because she just didn't want to sit still anymore. My dad's a flight attendant. Well, he's retired now, but he was a flight attendant for United. So I had a lot of anxiety. Like, people were constantly looking up in the sky, wondering if a plane was going to fall. So when I walked in, and I'm like, literally walking the front door, the couches are here, and I look over and see them, and I walk kind of past them, and I look, and I'm like, that's weird.
Disturbing.
Let me go this way. The guy I was with, I'll refer to him as old boy for the rest of the story. Old boy goes off into like the back of the house where the kitchen is. I never see the driver of that truck again this night. So I find like an armchair, and I'm kind of just sitting there chilling, waiting for him to come back to the front. So I'm waiting for him to come back to the front, and he does, and I notice he's a little not himself. I don't pay any attention.
As in, he's under the influence of something.
I don't realize it at the time, but he's just acting weird. So he's under the influence of something. He asked me if I wanted a drink. I said no, because it would have been an open cup, and I was like, mm-mm.
Smart.
So he's like, well, let's go for a walk. So we walk, and we end up at another house party. I don't remember how far we were, but I'll just say we went to at least 3 other houses in that neighborhood. And each time we would get inside, he would say, hey, hold up a second. He would disappear. I would sit, and he would come back. At one of the houses, I did do a couple shots because I recognized somebody from my friend's job. So they gave me a couple shots so I was like, I felt like I was being
Uptight.
stuck up, which I've been told I can be. So I was like, let me loosen up. If I'm going to be with him, like, I need to just chill. And so we leave whatever the last place is. No, I'm so sorry. I asked him, can we leave? Because he's on the balcony. And I'm realizing, like, we keep going to these places, but we're not hanging. Like, he'll disappear for a good 15 minutes and then come back. And then we'll go to another place. And so I was like, can we just either go back to your place or take me home? He's like, no, we can go chill. We can go back to my place. Turns out the first house we were at was his place. That's where he was staying.
Oh.
I don't know if it was really his place, but he had a key, so I don't know. But we end up there. The house is kind of empty now. I remember there being people that came from down upstairs and left. We hung out in the living room, and we get to talking, and he starts spitting game, and he starts saying the most ridiculous things that I didn't care about. I'm not a materialistic person. I don't care about, like, at this time in my life, I still don't, but he was like, yeah, I want to be a rapper one day. I was like, womp womp. Not to poo-poo anybody's dreams, but it's just a common line.
Yes.
And I was like, do you? Great. He's like, yeah, I'm going to make it big so I can take care of my son. And I was like,
How's his son?
not a red flag necessarily, but okay, cool, you have a kid. So now I'm trying to figure out how old he is. I have a lot of questions, but sheltered. I don't feel confident to ask. It's just me and him. I don't want to ask him anything that I think is I make him mad. So we continue talking. I tell him, about my friends and myself. Not too much. I try not to tell him too much information, because I really don't know this guy, and I'm not like, he's fine. Like, that was what was overriding my thoughts, is that he's so fine. So he did offer me another drink. This was something unopened. I watched him, so I drank that. He smoked at the time. I didn't smoke. It was weed. So he was smoking, and he started relaxing, and then, one thing led to another, and so we go upstairs. We start to have sex. I ask him to stop. I was like, can you go get a condom? And he's like, no problem. He gets up, walks out the room, takes a couple minutes. I hear whatever, like, movement. He comes back. I don't look. I don't check, because still sheltered, I'm not going to look. I don't want to touch it. Just let's do what we're doing.
You're inexperienced.
Very inexperienced. Even though I'm having a lot of sex, I'm still inexperienced.
Right.
So we continue to have sex, and when we're done, go to sleep. And then I remember waking up to go to the bathroom. And when I go in the bathroom, I see an unopened box of condoms. And I clocked it, but it didn't register that to look like in the trash to see if there was a wrapper. Because like maybe it's in the room, maybe it's tangled up in the sheets or something like that. So I just didn't, this is all hindsight of later, but I remember clocking and seeing the unopened box. And so I get back to the room, and he had he was awake at this point, and asked me what I wanted to do. And I was like, you can take me home. I'm ready to go. Because remember, the whole point of this was to have a story from my roommate.
Right.
So I was like, yeah, go. Now at this point, I want to get home before she gets back. So he takes me home. He had to borrow a car. So that let me know that he asked somebody who was on their break, I guess, to come pick me up in the first place in the pizza truck. Girl.
I mean, shout out to his friend for even doing that, though.
Shout out to his friend, but like, don't offer to take somebody out and
Yeah.
you know, but we're all in college. It is what it is. So he borrows a friend's car, drops me off, and I run to the room. Who is sitting on their bed waiting for me is my roommate. I was like, how did she get back before me? Because it was like maybe 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. She had come back the same night. She decided not to stay out. She's like, I have been calling you. Where have you been? You didn't tell me you were leaving. So I checked my phone. Sure enough, like 10 missed calls. And I was like, oh, don't worry about it. I just hung out with a friend. My bad. I didn't know that you were coming back early. I didn't say anything else. I grabbed my clothes, took a shower. And I remember coming back, and she's like, well, where were you? I was like, don't worry about it. I have class. I didn't have class. I just didn't want to be with her. And so I went off to the library to study some more. And every time she was around me, she was asking questions again. And I was like, just let it go. Like, I'm good. Nothing happened. It was just a friend. I didn't want her to know who I was with. So there was a day, so that was Wednesday. This had to have been on a weekend because her second job that she had was at the mall. And so I remember being out with some folks, coming back to the room. She comes in. She's like, girl, guess what I just saw? And I was like, I don't know who. And she's like, that dude that you saw at the club. And I was like, what club? Like, I was really trying to play stupid. I was like, what club? What dude? She's like, the tall, fine one that smelled good, that was just talking to you. And I was like, oh, him. Okay, so, yeah, what? And she's like, yeah, but he had like a whole lot of girls around him. And I was like, he's not my man. It's fine.
Yeah.
But I clocked it. I was like, that's weird, because I hadn't heard from him since. So she kept talking about that experience. She went up to him and spoke to him, and he didn't know who she was, but she was being nosy and messy. So she comes back to tell me that. I dismiss it. Yes, this was a Saturday. We had plans to support a friend for a house party. It was something that they were raising funds for. So we're like, are we going to go to the calf now, or are we going to rest or whatever? I was like, my head actually hurts. I don't think I want to do anything right now. She was like, yeah, I feel kind of weird too. So let's just snap it up, and then we'll go eat, and then we'll go to the house party. And so we did that. And we get up and we head to the cafeteria. I don't remember how I got back to my room. But I was told that I didn't pass out, but I was like not walking like a normal person. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't making sense. I just kept saying, my head hurts, my head hurts. And the group of friends plus my roommate that I was with, they walked us. They're like, let's just take her back to get her to lay down. So they got me back in the room. I remember waking up, and they had brought me food. And my roommate was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, my head doesn't hurt as bad anymore. Maybe there's like a bug or something.
How long after having sex with him did these symptoms start?
Part of me wants to say a week and a half, but I'm going to say 2 weeks,
Okay.
just because it's been 20 years.
Right.
So I don't fully remember, but I want to say about a week and a half.
Okay.
So, yeah, we get dressed, we go to the house party. Another thing that is locked in my memory is my friends are used to me always, like, when it was just us, like our crew, I would kick things off by drinking first. I would do at least 3 drinks. And then that's when I was like, fun Kamaria, I guess. Like, I was like, I'm not that shy and quiet. They're like, yeah, you are. But when you get a couple drinks in you, then you're good. And so this house party, there was this one friend, he knew what my favorite drink was. I was like, I don't want anything. He's like, what you mean you don't want anything?
Right.
And so they weren't going to force me, but they kept looking at me for like, what do you mean you're not drinking? I was like, I'm good. I'm just on chill tonight. one of them made a very inappropriate comment about, what, you got AIDS or something? You acting crazy.
Oh, gosh.
At the time, we kind of laughed it off. Like, nobody, it was very stigmatizing, but young folks say ignorant things.
Yeah. Because
And
what's the association?
What was the association?
Yeah.
Like, it was just very ignorant and out of pocket. But anyway, we laughed it off. And then we left early. I started not feeling well again, and this particular house was like right behind our dorm, so it wasn't a long walk. From that moment forward, my health just deteriorated. So I remember having night sweats, fainting. That time I did have energy to like get up and go to the dorm bathrooms, which I would say was about 25 steps away from our door. I'd pass out in the shower.
Wow.
And if you've been in college, girl.
Yeah.
I remember waking up cold because the water had gotten cold, my bare butt on the shower floor. And I was like, no, no, God help me, no.
Not in the college dorm.
Yes, and my flip-flops, I must have kicked them off when I slid. I had gotten so accustomed to fainting, I could control it. Even today, I know when I'm probably going to, and I just make my way to a wall and I just slide until I get into a position where I can sit. So that's what happened in the shower. It happened again at the water fountain, because I was trying to fill up. We had those like Dollar Tree water jugs, so I was filling up one of those because I was dehydrated. I was drinking crazy amounts of water. One of my off-campus roommates from when I first got to school, she had a car, and my current roommate, her mom was a nurse, and they were worried. They're like, she needs to go to the emergency room. Because I had already gone to the campus nurse, and all they do is give you a pregnancy test and take your fever, or take your temperature, I mean. So I wasn't pregnant, and she encouraged me to go to the emergency room if I wasn't feeling better, but that was the extent of it, plus I didn't have insurance. So my off-campus roommate, who's now in a pharmacy tech, she's amazing, but she picked me up, took me to the emergency room. A doctor diagnosed me with a bladder infection, or UTI.
So do you think that this is why this is going on, or do you say there has to be something more, but you don't know because you're young?
I don't think anything about it. I'd never had a bladder infection before.
Okay.
So I'm thinking this is like something from sex. Not realizing like my body is fighting the virus off. Another like weird moment happened. A friend from second grade happened to be in the bed next to me, and she heard the nurse giving me my diagnosis, and she pulls the curtain back, telling me about my bladder infection. She's like, "Oh, girl, you'll be fine," because I started crying because I've never been in the hospital before.
Of course.
And she pulled the curtain back. She goes, "Hey, girl," and I was like, "This is not the time."
Right, not now.
But her personality, that's just how she is. She's like, "Oh, you'll be fine. I've had those before." And I was like, "Thanks, appreciate it." But it was comforting to have somebody there that I knew from home. So they gave me an antibiotic. I also have friends who are conspiracy theorists. So they found out the antibiotic I was on is the same antibiotic that they were giving people to fight anthrax.
Ooh, and at the time.
Yeah, so when I made that connection, I was like, I ain't taking that mess.
9/11 had just happened.
I was like, I'm not taking that.
Wow.
So ignorant. It's the antibiotic to prevent you from getting sick.
Yeah.
You should probably take it. But also what I didn't know is I actually am allergic to that particular.
Oh.
I was getting sicker. So the fainting and the dehydration specifically got worse with that particular antibiotic. And the headaches, massive headaches. So I stopped taking it. I've lost a good chunk of weight. So as a freshman, that's unheard of. You're supposed to gain 15 pounds. I lost 20. Micro braids are still in. Keep that in mind.
Okay.
I've been sweating. They look a mess.
Oh, wow.
So thank God for the Jill Scott, Alicia Keys look. So I had scarves tied tight. But I'm going back to class, and I remember walking into the class, and I remember hearing someone say, "I told you she was on that stuff." And I was like, who? I was the only person that walked in. But of course, you look around like, who are they talking about?
Right.
It couldn't be me. I'm not on anything. But they were talking about me. My clothes were hanging off of me like they were baggy because I've always been a fluffy girl. So my clothes weren't fitting. So I looked sick. I looked a mess. Skin was dry. I wasn't taking care of myself because I couldn't see how I looked. I just wanted to feel better and get back to my life. I had never been this sick before.
Of course, and you also didn't have the energy.
I had no energy at all. So much time. I've been sick from late September now to up to Thanksgiving. So now we're at Thanksgiving break and everybody's going, I want to go home. Please let me go home. So I go home to be with family. Everybody's like, are you okay? And I was like, I'm fine. I'm home. I'm chilling. Like, are they feeding you? Like, do you not have money? I was like, I eat. So my grandma used to make mashed potatoes. They were my favorite. Hers are the only ones I eat. I have not mastered that recipe to this day. And she fixed me a plate, and I looked at it, and I was like, I'm not hungry, Granny. And she gave me this look like, mm-hmm. And I was like, the heck does that mean? What are you on right now?
Grandma's be knowing.
Grandma's be knowing. She didn't, I don't think she knew,
Right,
but she knew
but-
something was
Correct.
wrong besides what I was telling her. My mom was in the middle of going through a divorce from my stepfather, so she wasn't fully as attentive. My sister, being a big sister, was making fun of me, talking about me or whatever. Thanksgiving break went by in a blur. My friends from high school made comments about, what'd you do to lose so much weight, girl? I need to lose me some weight. And I was like, get a bladder infection, I guess? I don't know. Like, I wasn't trying to. And so I go back to campus to finish out the last semester, or the last part of the semester, and I'm feeling better. I've lost weight, feeling cute, got my energy back, bought me clothes, and it's in single digits. So I was like, all right, size 10 and 9. And so I'm going out a lot more. Internally, I know something's wrong. But I never asked for any tests for STIs or HIV. That never occurred to me, but I knew something was wrong.
Right.
But to block it out, I was like, I'm just going to party and have fun. Also, I'm aware of my mom's financial situation. It's not 100% clear to me if I'll be able to come back fully for the fall semester.
Gotcha. So you're trying to maximize your college experience to
For sure.
the max.
For sure. So, Thanksgiving break, Christmas, I don't remember at all. Pretty sure I went home. Finish out the next spring semester, and then the next summer comes. And previous fall semester is a distant memory. I don't think anything else about. I haven't heard from that guy. I've met other guys. I've dated other guys.
Because it's been a year at this point.
We're coming up on a year. So we're coming up on the anniversary of me losing my virginity. And so I meet a guy at home back in Polk County, and he's still in high school. So I didn't know him when we were in high school together. He's a senior. He played football. I always wanted to date a football player. And we both worked at the same grocery store. So my sister thought he was adorable. And if my sister liked you, then that was huge. So we started dating. I am in love.
Are you back in Polk County at
I
this
am back
time,
in Polk
full
County.
time? No more college?
Technically.
Okay.
Me and my mom don't necessarily talk about the financial situation. Me and my friends, because I'm embarrassed, and this is why I go home to work, to save money. I'm embarrassed that I don't have like scholarship and grants and things, so I'm trying to pay for it myself. They want to move off campus and get an apartment. So I was like, cool, that'll actually work. That way the school's not in my business about the money, and they can't report to my mom if I'm not doing XYZ thing. Because with scholarships, you have like certain criteria, you know. So we all get an apartment. There's 3 of us. A friend from middle school who I had lost touch with and reconnected with. And then the roommate that I had, Pimptress J. So we all get an apartment together. And we also leftover money from my scholarship, your net check, I use that for the deposit and first month's rent. So I'm good for a little bit. The next 2 months is when I'm like, I don't have the money. And so the eviction process starts.
Oh.
Meanwhile, I have a boyfriend, so we have zip code boyfriends.
Okay.
I have a boyfriend back home that works at the grocery store. He's boy next door type of thing.
Okay.
My mom loves him. He's a good Christian young man. Granny loves him. But then, he's still in school, so I come back to school, to college, and I meet someone else who works at the liquor store.
Listen, you were living a college life, girl. I love this for you. Wow.
This is when social media, we didn't know it wasn't called social media then. Facebook was brand new, which is so weird today to say that I was around when Facebook started.
Mm-hmm.
But there was another site called College Club, and I met this guy. He's like, he lived in Quincy, which is right outside of Tallahassee.
Mm-hmm. Very, very country town.
Very country.
Nothing but trees and land.
Yep, not too much now because T-Pain's from
Okay,
Quincy.
okay, you're right, my fault.
But yeah, so he's from there. So he's explaining that to me in relation to fam. And he's like, yeah, when you come back up here, like, we'll hang out. So I was like, okay, cool. And so I get back up there. Our roommates, we all meet his friends. They come over. We play Uno. It becomes like this whole thing. And so we're hanging out like maybe 3 times a week. And then I actually was trying to hook him up with one of my roommates. Because I met him and I was like, yeah, you're a great friend. You're really funny, but you're not really my type. Plus, I'm trying to keep in mind that I'm trying to like be with this guy back home. But I don't tell anybody that there's a guy back home.
Right.
But this old boy keeps pushing up on me. And
Liquor Store Bay.
Liquor Store Bay. There we go. That's what we'll call him. Liquor Store Bay, like, we click, and then my roommate didn't like him. She couldn't stand him, to be honest. So there was a night where she was gone, and we ended up in my room, and we had sex, and we kept having sex, and he was over a lot. He almost moved in. I didn't know his situation back then. He didn't actually have his own place.
Oh.
He was from there, like, he had family, but, like, he was living with family, so he didn't have a place for me to go and hang out.
So you guys only hung out at your
mine.
place?
Yeah. We only hung out at my place. And I woke up one morning, and we were going to go to, I forgot the name of the buffet place. We were going to go to this restaurant, and we're sitting there, and I was craving grapes. And so I'm just eating this big bowl of grapes. It's a buffet. That's all I got. And he just sat back and looked at me and goes, "You're pregnant." And I was like, "No, I'm not. I'm just eating grapes." He's like, "Nah." He had a daughter already.
Oh.
He's like, "Nah. When that baby mama was pregnant, she craved grapes." And I was like, "All women aren't the same. Like, whatever." Like, I totally dismissed him. But sure enough, I was pregnant. So now I got to deal with that. So we go back and forth. I, in my mind and heart, know that I don't want to be a mother. I was like, the one thing my grandma told me not to do was don't bring home no babies.
Listen, they never tell you don't get STIs. They never tell you don't get HIV. All the things that could happen. They
don't tell you how. Don't bring home no babies, but they don't tell you what to do to not have that happen. So all I knew is I can't disappoint my family. I cannot come home pregnant.
Yeah.
But also remember, I'm in the process of getting evicted. So I'm really like running out of options.
Yeah.
And that was the other thing is like, so the reason I was being evicted, I couldn't transfer my job from the grocery store I worked at from Polk County to Tallahassee because everybody was doing that. And I kept waiting too late. So they had no shifts available for me. And it was just really hard to find work with no transportation. So I have a decision to make. I decide, my roommates, because what happens with this apartment complex, they first evict you out of your room. So the key to my bedroom no longer, I could get in the apartment, but I couldn't get into my bedroom anymore.
Okay.
They let you know that. So like my roommates helped me put my stuff in storage. And then my key to the front door didn't work anymore. So they had to let me in. So I was sleeping on the couch for like a month. But the roommate from childhood, she's a very practical woman. And she's like, you still owe us rent because we got to figure out how we're, like we each have our own individual rent, but like it's making my credit look behind because you're not paying.
Oh.
And so they took a vote and I had to leave.
Yeah.
So I called Liquor Store Bay and I was like, I need somewhere to stay. I can't just, because my mom knows nothing of what's happening. She thinks I'm living off of my scholarship net check. I don't know why she thought that money was like going to last me forever. It was only like maybe $2,000. Anyway, I stay with Liquor Store Bay. He has a house with a bunch of other guys. And I'm there for a little while. I'm also in the process of joining, I don't know if I should say the organization because I'm not active in it anymore. It wasn't a sorority. It was a community service type of organization
Okay.
that I loved deeply. Still carry the values. I just haven't been active since I left. But I was in the process of joining and like learning so much about myself, and reevaluating life and what I wanted as far as like, do I want to have this baby and then have something to pass on to her as far as this legacy of being a part of something, or do I want to start fresh? And so the start fresh was more appealing. I was like, I'm just going to terminate the pregnancy. So a friend of mine was like, I know where you can go. So I trusted her because I knew she'd had an abortion before. And I go to the place she tells me to go to, only to find out it was not an abortion clinic. It was, I don't know what they're called, but it was a women's wellness center.
Okay.
And so I went in explaining what I wanted. And I don't want to speak poorly of this, but in the moment I felt like I was being held hostage. I was hungry. I was pregnant. I just wanted to know what my options were for terminating, but their job was to talk me out of it.
Of course.
So they did a sonogram. They showed that to me. They prayed with me. They brought me crackers. They asked if I needed support with family. And I was like, nah, because I don't want the baby. I was like, y'all aren't understanding. And they're like, well, what about adoption? I was like, for some reason, adoption was not an option for me. Like, giving birth and then giving my child away and I'm not shading anybody who's done that. It just didn't feel right for me.
Well, also, at this point, you haven't told your family, so you'd have to tell the family. There were so many things that would have to take place that was so far out of your...
I wanted this to stay as quiet as possible.
Correct.
So that didn't happen. I ended up leaving that place that day, coming home and cussing out my roommate for sending me to this place. But she knew how sensitive I was. She's like, I just feel so protective of you. She told me this later. She's like, I just didn't feel like that was the right option for you.
So she knew.
She was looking out for me.
Okay.
And we're still close to this day. I'm very, very grateful now. I was very upset with her for a while when this first happened. So I figured out a way to... I'm hiding my morning sickness. Now my roommates know because I remember going upstairs one day. We lived on the second floor, and I smelled fried chicken. And the friend that ended up wanting me to leave, she was like, "That's a pregnant lady nose. Ain't nobody cooking fried chicken." And I was like, "Y'all don't smell that?" She's like, "You hungry and you pregnant. Let's get you some fried chicken, but ain't nobody cooking chicken."
Right.
And so I sat them down and I told them. And then when they found out who the father was, they're like, "Girl." I was like, not too much. So they supported me in that. So now I'm telling my friends because now I'm trying to like find a solution and support. Like, what do I do? And so the only thing that made sense was you got to go home. Mm-hmm. And so this is around January of 2003. Yeah. So.
And how many months pregnant were you would say, at this point?
I gave birth in July. I got pregnant, I guess, it had to have been October. So I would say I was about 4. It was a good 3.5, 4 months.
Are you showing?
Kind of. If you looked, because remember I had lost a lot of weight.
Correct.
So if you look, I was wearing I still had all my fluffy girl clothes.
Gotcha.
So if you looked close enough, you could tell. But I only gained weight in my waist and here. Like, you couldn't tell in my face or anywhere else. To the point that when I go back home, I'm back at the grocery store I was working at. I'm still wearing, the uniform is the same but different. It's a vest and pants. I could still wear my old uniform for a while. So I hid my pregnancy for up until Easter Sunday weekend.
Oh, wow.
That weekend's significant because my baby daddy, his friend was killed that weekend, and he was upset. It wasn't that weekend, it was like right before. He was upset that I was choosing not to come back to Tallahassee to be with him while he was going through that. The real reason was my mom wasn't going to let me. I was very sheltered. So, like, Now everybody knows I'm not in school. So what you going back to Tallahassee for? I was like, I have friends. I do have a life there. And she's like, you don't have a car. So none of us have time to take off from work. You're not going. And then no one also had the money for me to, because I rode the Greyhound home. And I actually didn't want to do that again. So I couldn't be there. We got in a huge fight. He called me selfish, he called me all kinds of names. At this point, I realized I don't want to be with this dude. I don't like you. Like, we had wonderful sex, and you're a good friend, but I don't like you. Because he also, like, went into this thing about, well, don't think I'm going to marry you. And I knew right then, I was like, well, when mom and dad find out. My parents were not together, but...
They shared the same values.
Yeah. I was, oh, so you're not going to make this right. Okay, cool. Noted. So that nixed any feelings that I was trying to manufacture for him. I was like, well, then forget it. Baby daddy you shall be. And so my sister knows at this point, before the Easter Day weekend, which I'll get to that. Up to this point, my sister knows, and my best friend from middle school knows. Best friend from middle school has lost her mind. She's so excited. She's wanting to buy all the clothes. I'm like, you can't buy. Where am I going to put them? Because I'm not telling anybody. Because at this point, I'm still trying to terminate. I didn't know, like, you can only do it up to so many months, and I'm getting very close to that window. So what's happening in that time is my sister's taking me to places, but every week the price goes up.
Yeah.
I'm working part-time at a grocery store, living at my grandma's house, not in school. The rule was if you're not in school, you got to pay somebody's bill. Mm-hmm. Pick a bill, pay it. So I'm making minimum wage, which was at that time $6.25. So there was no way I could keep this secret, pay the bill that grandma wanted me to pay, which I think was just like the water bill, and try to take care of this pregnancy. And my sister didn't have the money to help either.
Right.
And I wasn't going to go around like
passing
a plate, asking for people to help me. So I ended up not terminating the pregnancy, but I also am not in prenatal care. All I am doing is taking prenatal vitamins and folic acid and eating fruits and vegetables. That's it. So I don't know, like, there's no test that's been done. I don't know the gender. I know nothing about what's going on with my body except that I'm going to be a mom. Easter weekend, my mom, she's been going through a lot, but I remember her coming down the hallway yelling at me because I'm still having morning sickness. Grandma had picked up on it because she stopped cooking in the morning. It was smelling the bacon grease.
Oh, yeah.
I would literally go in the backyard to throw up. And she came out one day, and I remember she had her hand on her hip and a towel in her hand and just looked at me. And I'm doing all this, and I'm like trying to not be obvious. And she just let me walk by her. She said, that's it. And I was like, dang.
Grandma's be knowing.
Granny knows. And so I don't know if she said anything to my mom. Easter Sunday, I'm laying on the couch, and I hear my mom coming down the hallway. She has the phone in her hand. And she's like, tell me what's going on with you and tell your daddy. And I was like, you're not even going, what? And they weren't close. So for her to have called him, she already knew. Mm-hmm. So I tell them, and my mom went off. She just yelled and cussed and disappointed because I was, her baby girl. Like, my sister didn't do school. School was not her thing. Everybody knew that. It wasn't expected of her, but it was expected of me. Mm-hmm. My dad, that's the first time I ever heard my dad cry. So he started crying. He didn't yell at me, but the disappointment of a dad the weight is different than a mom. Mom's always yell and fuss. I am a mom. I yell and fuss. But just, the weight of a disappointed father is just different. And so I remember being anxious about my mom, but being sad about my dad. And so we get off the phone, and then baby daddy called he had been drinking after the funeral, was cutting up, calling me all out my name, all kinds of stuff. So I did not have the best Easter that year.
Oh, yeah. And being pregnant, that's a lot to handle.
Pregnant. And I remember every time baby daddy called, baby would kick hard. And I would tell him, I'm like, you need to calm down because she feels you, because she's tearing me up inside.
Yeah.
I don't know her gender. I'm just saying she. So that's Easter. So fast forward to, we're getting close to my anticipated due date. The only reason I didn't know it is because, and why I wasn't in prenatal care is I have Medicaid, which means I can only go to the health department at the time. It's the only people I could find. They were so backed up that they couldn't schedule me until after my expected due date. So I register at the women's hospital. I give them the anticipated due date so they can have a doctor scheduled. And so anticipated due date was July 17th. My mom's birthday is July 15th. Something in me, I was like, I want to have this baby before my mom's birthday. And so I kept like calling, asking like, are you sure nobody can see me and just measure me or give me something to like bring the baby? They're like, no, at the time, like the privilege that a lot of folks have of like choosing their birth date of like when they get to have their baby, that wasn't a
luxury then.
Wasn't a luxury that was afforded to young single black mothers back then. So July 15th comes and goes. My mom's not talking to me. July 17th comes and goes. And now my mom's like, well, we got to figure out what's going on. If that was your anticipated due date and nothing's happening, you don't feel anything, we need to have you checked. They take me up. They measure me. They're like, oh, you're kind of, she's in position. And I was like, to come out when? Like, I know nothing. So skipping through all of that, they finally induced me. I have no, like, I don't do an epidural or anything like that. I have her naturally. Because remember, I haven't been tested for anything. So doctors, nurses know nothing.
Right.
So I have a vaginal birth. I'm a type of person, I'm in a lot of pain. I go to sleep. So I'm literally passing out in between contractions. That's just how I cope. I don't know why. So I would wake up, push. I remember cussing the nurses out because they kept touching me. I don't like being touched when I'm in pain.
I'm hurting.
Yeah, because they kept wanting me. I think at one point I had to get on my hands and knees in the bed
Oh.
for them to measure me. Like they had to insert. So I was just not happy. I was very angry. And that's a lot of belly to be moving around. My mom, my sister, and another friend from middle school came for the birth. So my sister's watching the contraction monitor. She's like, ooh, did that one hurt? That would look like a doozy. She's had 3 kids. Why are you messing with me right now? My sister's a bully. Saying that for everybody to know my sister's a bully. But anyway, I end up delivering 6-pound, 14-ounce little girl. And I'm looking at her and I'm just like, this is real. This is happening. They did take blood. They explained to me because I had no prenatal care, they had to take X amount of vials of blood. It was a lot. I remember at one point the needle came out because I remember seeing blood like squirt across the room. Yeah. I don't know what that was about. My mom's favorite story of this experience is when I tore a little bit and they were sewing me back up. And she says the whole room got quiet because all I did was I just started praying. I just kept calling on Jesus.
Wow.
Because I was scared to breathe. Like I was scared to move because I was like, she ripped me. What does that mean? Nobody prepared me for it.
Right.
What do you mean you ripped me? So anyway, they're sewing me. But she said all the nurses just stopped. And like the one that was obviously doing their job was still going. But like when they got done, they were in the hallway telling her like how peaceful the room got. Baby stopped crying, everything. Like everything got quiet. I just remember being in pain. When they got done sewing me, I fell back and I went to sleep. Me sleeping a lot meant I also couldn't practice feeding her, latching on. A lactation counselor came in. I'm guessing results from my blood have not come in at this point because they're trying to show me how to breastfeed with a doll because the baby was asleep. And so they have her on a schedule. They ended up putting her on a schedule with formula because I was not alert enough or coherent enough to sit up and do all the things. Ended up being a blessing. When I finally do bring her home, I did have a baby shower. And so my friends got me pumping device and bottles and all that stuff. So I'm up in the middle of the night, like lining stuff up, trying to practice because I can't get her to latch. And so I was like, okay, I'll just pump and feed her the breast milk that way. Homegirl would spit it up. And I'm like, do you know how hard I worked to just get this half of an ounce and you spit it up? And I was like, all right, it's a wrap. We're going to WIC and we're going to put you on formula, which at this point now, even though I didn't want to be a mom, I didn't want to have this pregnancy, I have this little human and I want to do the best. I want to be the best mom and do all the things. I was trying to make her food, buying fruits and like mashing them up and all that weird stuff. Not weird, but I didn't know what I was doing. So my WIC appointment, I leave for that. And, well, my mom had to take me because I still don't have transportation. I don't know how to drive. No one ever taught me how to drive.
Oh, so not only do you not have a car, you don't even know how to drive.
So I am 21 years old and do not know how to drive.
Okay.
Yeah. Bringing up the high school football player boyfriend.
Yes, what happened to him?
So we broke up when he found out I was pregnant, obviously, because it wasn't his. But then when he found out that I was trying to terminate, he freaked out.
Oh.
He was like, is it because the dad's not going to be around? Like, I'll be the dad.
Oh, wow.
Like, you're in high school. This is why everybody loved him, because he was just... My mom used to say he could walk on water. I was like, please stop making that reference. Please stop doing that.
Okay, Jesus.
Yeah, he didn't even like it. But he was like, I don't know what it's going to look like for me and you to be together, but I want to be here for you. So he was like taking me to get food when I had random cravings, rubbing my feet. He would come over because, granted, he was a good boy, so granted, he could come over after 7 and sit in the living room with me.
Because he had the family approval.
Because he had the family approval. So after I have he came up to see me at the hospital. Baby daddy didn't come. That's a whole nother story. If you ever do a story about baby mamas, I got you. I promise. He had multiple children. Oh, wow. So we'll just stop there. But he didn't come to the hospital to see me, but the guy that I'm hoping will, like, love me again, he's there. He's bringing his mom. I have his family's approval, too. Like, they're crazy about me. Like, it just made sense. She was not happy about him being around me and I have a child, but she liked me. Anyway, so that's what happened to him. He was around. So I go in for this WIC appointment. My mom had to take off work to take me. We'd already made an agreement to tell her all my appointments so she wouldn't have to take off from work in the middle of the day. Otherwise, I'd have to experience her wrath. So this particular appointment was fine. I go in for WIC. I come home to a voicemail. My mom has gone back to work. Come home to a voicemail from the OBGYN's office. Hey, Miss Gammon, that's my maiden name. We need you to come in. If you're making any attempts to breastfeed your child, we need you to stop. And we need you to bring in the baby. We just want to share some information with you and go over your blood work. And so I'm like, I know that doesn't sound good. Still not registering in my mind what it really is. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking cancer. So now I got to tell my mom, and they want me to come in immediately, like that day or the next day. So my mama just dropped me off. So I pushed it to the next day because I'm like, she's not going to cuss me out about this. She still did because that was 2 days in a row that she had to take off work. And so she's fussed at me. And I was like, Mom, I didn't forget this appointment. They literally just called me about it. She's telling me I'm irresponsible and I've got to get it together if I'm going to be a mom. Like,
all the things.
All the things. In hindsight, totally get it. I just wish she had been a little more gentle with me. So we go to this appointment. I remember walking into the OBGYN's office. And I don't know if this was paranoia, but it felt like everybody in the building just stopped. And I felt like everybody did exactly what you just did. I felt the head tilts. I don't think that's what was really happening. It's just what was happening in my head. So we check in, we sit. I have the baby. My mom's sitting next to me. My mom is being on her best behavior now. And so she's cutting up and talking about how beautiful the baby is with all the nurses and all the people that are in there. And
meanwhile, she just cussed you out in the car.
She just cussed me out in the car. So my mom's name and the first 2 letters of both of their names are S-Y. And so my mom, that was her favorite grandma story. She's like, she's named after me, but not really. But it's such a beautiful name, but it's spelled just like mine. Like, that's her favorite thing at this point to say. So that was the story for everybody in the lobby. Normally, when they call you back for your appointment, it's the nurse that does the triage. She comes, calls your last name, you go. That's not what happened. My doctor who delivered the baby, who was shorter than me, had to sit on a step stool to deliver. Aww. It was so hilarious. It was so funny for her to have to climb up on the step stool. So she walks out. And I was like, what are you doing in the lobby? And she's like, no, I just wanted to see the baby. And I wanted to say hi to your mom. And so she's being very professional, very friendly. This is my 3rd time seeing her. And so she's like, why don't all of you come back into my office? And I gave her a look, and I guess she realized then that that wasn't a good idea. So she's like, or mom and baby can stay out here, and you can come and we can talk. And I was like, okay. And so I saw my mom bristle. My mom is also a short woman. She's red, like red-skinned. freckle-faced red hair, so she's very fair.
Oh.
And my dad's very chocolate, so that's where you get the
Genetics are so
aren't
weird.
they? Yeah. So she's sitting there, and I saw her sit up, and I call her that's her military pose. She's on guard now, and I was like, oh, here we go. So I go into the doctor's, not like a medical room, in her actual office with all her degrees and her family photos, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is gonna be bad, because I'm like, why? This is such a weird space to be in, and I'm just feeling it. And so she sits me down and she's explaining why, me not having prenatal care, what they have to do on their end, and all the tests that they have to run. So she's like, we had to do a STI panel. And so she's like, well, she's like, you don't have herpes, you don't have syphilis. She's going down a list of what I don't have. When I know someone's about to tell me bad news, I go on guard. I don't do a whole sit-up thing, but inside there's a wall in my head, and I don't give you a reaction. The more she keeps telling me what I don't have, the more I'm like, I really wish you to get to the point. Like, you made me bring my baby in, so what's going on? And so she starts explaining that when a baby is born, they have their mother's immune system for 6 months to a year. They work and build up their own antibodies. But when a baby is born, they literally have their mother's antibodies. And because of that, it shows that my daughter looks like she has HIV because I'm HIV positive. And so she tells me that, and she goes, were you aware of your HIV status before your pregnancy? And I was like, this is the first time I've ever heard this. And so that was the only answer I gave her. She asked other questions. She gave other information. She told me more things about the baby. But in my head, I'm calculating. I'm going through my head. One side of me is planning a funeral. Another side of me is mapping out who did I get it from.
Yeah.
And my brain immediately went to, oh boy. Because I knew for a fact, I knew baby daddy, we had unprotected sex, but I also knew he had other children.
So you would have.
I'd already narrowed that down. I was like, okay, if they're good, then it can't be him. And it just something in my spirit said it was oh boy. The other men I had been with, I did use protection with them. So I'm mapping all this out while she's talking to me. And I remember at one point she says, do you want to tell your mom? I said, absolutely not. And she's like, do you want me to be with you? Do you need support? And I was like, I don't know what part of absolutely not.
Right.
You didn't understand. I'm not telling her. I'm not telling anybody. Because I've already mapped out that I'm dying, like I'm dead. She has told me that I'm not. She's told me about the treatment. I heard her say that, but I didn't believe her. And so she took me into, I remember being in a different room when this happened. She took me into a different room. Oh, shoot, to do an exam. Sorry. She took me to an exam room, had me wait. She left. And so I'm sitting there, no tears, no emotion. Like I think I'm in shock. And so the door opens. My mom walked in. And I was like, shit. Me and my mom are very, very close, despite the cussing me out and things like that. We are very close. And she can read me and I can read her. And so I couldn't even look at her. And so she was like, what is it? What's going on? And I was like, Mom, I need you to sit down. And so I don't know why, but either she took too long to sit or I blurted it out, or both. But as I said, Mom, they just told me I'm HIV positive. As I said that, she didn't quite hit the chair and she slumped on the floor. And then the doctor came around the corner and got her and helped her back up. And she says, I'm going to give you some time. We have one of the nurses with the baby. Take all the time you need. And so we sat there. My mom heard it. Took like maybe 2 minutes to process. Jumped up and started praying. I'm looking at her like, this woman has absolutely just lost her mind. I just told you I'm dying, and this is your response. But I welcome the prayer. Like, who am I to reject prayer?
Right.
So I let her. I mean, she was being loud. She was carrying on. She was doing a lot. And I realized in hindsight, it was for both of us, but it was for her. That was the response that she needed to tap into what gave her strength. She asked me, did I want to tell my grandma? I said, not yet. And so we got more information. I did my exam, got my next appointment, got the baby, went home. My mom's a drinker. and she lived in the back bedroom, so we didn't see much of her. She would do what she did, get up and go to work, come home, go back to her room. I went into a habit of, because I didn't have any education or understanding of what was happening, I wouldn't take a shower until everybody else did. So I would ask everybody, are you good for the day? Like, can I go ahead and take a shower? Grandma didn't understand why I was doing that. She thought I was just being weird. And, like, she thought I found out later she thought I thought she wasn't clean. And that, because I was bleaching everything.
Oh.
So she had some shame in that. We lived in a much older house at this time. So I didn't know that was something she was processing.
Meanwhile, you have your whole
Yeah.
other narrative in your
So
head.
I was
far.
in my mind, I'm trying to protect her.
Right.
Because I don't know what this is.
And no one told you after giving you your diagnosis, like you weren't like given.
I'm sure they did. I just wasn't.
Gotcha.
I didn't. You
Okay.
told me the same moment, the same breath, you have HIV. You're also explaining to me how it's transmitted and but I didn't process any of that.
Gotcha.
Google also wasn't like a thing.
Yeah.
God, I feel so old.
But it would have been great to have a ChatGPT or a Google.
Oh my gosh, it would have saved so much stress. And then again, maybe not. I might have got information overload, as many people do.
Yeah.
Today. So I do remember Googling later, but not about like my health. I was trying to find people, and I could only find white folks. I was looking for young black women, and I wasn't finding that. So at this moment, only my mom and my grandmother know. I did finally tell my grandma, and that's when she was just like, because I think she was coming in from gardening, and I was just pacing, like anxious to tell her because mom wasn't home. It's like, let me do it where I don't trigger mom, where she goes off again, and it's just me and Granny. And that's when she was like, well, you still my knothead, just go take out the trash. And I was like, cool. And I went and took out the trash. I'm taking the baby to her appointments, so still don't have transportation. For this is July, so the next year, I have to drive her all the way to Tampa from Polk County to the All Children's Hospital to be tested and be given treatment. And I remember it was like early July, I want to say it was before my birthday, that the nurses were so amazing there, but it was her last treatment, and they lined up and they let me walk out to tell me she's HIV negative. So they were all clapping and cheering. I'm crying because that particular morning, I remember praying to God, and I was like, if you can keep her from this, I will do whatever you want me to do with this diagnosis. I'd already contemplated ending my life. Never tried, but I contemplated it. Never got the opportunity to get the things together that I was thinking of how I wanted to go. It just never worked out. I contemplated still. Then I was considering giving her up for adoption because I'm thinking I'm going to die. And I really didn't want anybody in my family raising her.
Yeah.
But that wasn't going to work because I knew baby daddy was going to lose his mind. All of these options and things are going through my head with fear. And so when they tell me that she's negative, I'm like, okay, now it's on you. So what are you going to do? God answered your prayer. So are you going to honor this covenant, this silent covenant you just made? Mm-hmm. And I did. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I still don't. Like, it's been a lot in the past. She'll be 22 this July.
Wow.
That's how I'm able to keep up with how many years I've been living with it. My diagnosis date is blurry. The paperwork says I was told September 9th, but I don't remember it being in September because that would have been a month. Yeah, that makes sense. A month and a half after I gave birth. So in 2003, that's how long they took to tell you, even with blood work.
And how long had it been since you had sex with oh boy at this point?
At this point, almost 2 years.
So you had been living with HIV unknowingly for 2 years?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, had a whole baby. And then she ended up being negative thanks to the treatment that was available to her. I'm realizing the older I get, the more pieces there are that I forget. So if you have questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
First off, I want to say I think this is one of the first episodes that has made my job very easy because you are such a great storyteller that I didn't even want to interrupt. Like, you can tell that you have been telling your story for quite some time, and you do it very, very well. So much that I was so intrigued that I was like, I don't want to interrupt. Like, but I do have some questions.
Yeah, sure.
So, obviously, baby daddy, we know he is HIV negative.
He's negative.
But given the trajectory of your sex life, and you're saying these other people you use protection with, the one person that comes to mind that you know that you did not use protection with is oh boy. Do you ever tell oh boy that you are HIV positive? Is there ever a conversation that's had?
No.
Okay.
In between the doctor that yelled at me, the Healthy Start worker coming to the house, there was also a DIS worker, disease intervention specialist, that was sent to the house by the health department. She was sent to the house before I was ever given resources about care and treatment. It was, tell us who all you've had sex with, where they live, and all that. I ended up getting that woman fired because she was not kind. She was literally like, it was just very clinical. And she was also coming at really inappropriate times. I was trying to get ready for work, trying to get the baby ready. I learned later she had some stuff going on, but it was rough. So I listed the name that he gave me. So I asked him, if everybody I've told you that I've been with, this is the one I'm concerned about, have you found him? And they were like, even if we found him, we can't tell you. Because if you don't have a way to get a hold of him, we can't say, oh yeah, he lives at 123 Main Street. And so I was like, okay, fine. So it was a worry in my mind for a little while, but the more time that went by and the less I thought about him, he just wasn't a factor in my life anymore. Like he wasn't somebody I wanted to hunt down or anything like that. I was like, if the DIS people find him, great. I've been asked about him since then of like, if he were to walk through the door right now, what would you do? The first time I was asked, I didn't have an answer because I literally hadn't thought about him. And I went home and prayed about it. I was like, God, what do you want me to do if I ever come across this path again? And God said, forgive. I was like, all right, fine. I'll add him to the list. But I realized in that moment of that prayer, I was like, I got to forgive myself first. God forgave me, but I'm still beating myself up. So I got to let this go in my heart before I can offer this forgiveness to a man that I'm never going to see again. To this day, I hope he's alive and thriving. I hope if he didn't know his status, that he does. I hope he didn't give it to anybody else. If he did, I hope they're doing well. I have no ill feelings towards him. I can count on one hand how many times he's crossed my mind and I've gotten angry. Not at him, just the circumstance. And there's usually been because of insurance or because I get really, really sick and it's something I just don't want to deal with. And so the blame naturally, who can I point my finger at? Mm-hmm. But overall, I genuinely hope he's doing well. Yeah.
Through your story, we can tell that baby daddy is a very distinguished individual, just given his reactions to a lot of the things and how he responded to you. So when you go and tell him that you are HIV positive, what is his response?
Shock, anger, and denial. Because he's like, they ain't got nothing to do with me, essentially. But he was... So I've shared what I was going through in those years with him, in those moments. We eventually do become friends and co-parent. He's no longer with us. He died by suicide.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
2021. He had a lot going on. He had 9 children total.
Wow.
At the time of his death. He got married, like I got married, and we could talk about that too. So we went through a lot of healing. He also, I didn't know, met with my mom, and she shared her version of what happened because I never told him how. Because everybody I was with, I was cheating on him. I was like, we weren't together, and you had babies on me, multiple. So we're not doing that. But my mom shared things with him that weren't true. And so that's what was fueling his anger, because he thought I was lying to him. And so I had to tell him, I was like, that was just mama being mama.
Yeah.
None of that was true. And so I revealed those things to him, and we were able to heal from that. But in that moment of telling him, he was angry. He was so so angry because I think he did really love me. I think he wanted to be with me, but there was just a lot of complications in the path.
You briefly talk about this support group you had gone to where no one in the room looked like you. And it was very hard because as a black woman living with HIV and being in a room with people who are not in the same age range as you, they don't look like you, and they also are not a woman. Would you say that that was a push towards your advocacy journey?
It definitely planted a seed.
Okay.
Representation absolutely matters. I'm sure I could have found some sort of alignment and commonalities with folks in that room, but for the pain I was in and the community I was looking for was not in that room. Like, there were folks, rightfully so, still angry about the Reagan administration, and this is like 2004, 2005. But now that I know my history of HIV, I get it. Reagan wouldn't even say HIV/AIDS. Like, they couldn't get resources. He was horrible. So these were all like gay white men that were older. They were aging. They had been on experimental treatments. They were holding a lot, but I didn't relate to any of that. That was not my experience, and they couldn't relate to me. So going into advocacy, my main goal was always to find somebody who looked like me, sit with them, talk with them, tell them my story, and hope that something came from that. Locally, I've been successful in, like, I shouldn't say successful, but I've made relationships with, I had a small support group at one time of just women. I found my gift is people come to me discreetly. They don't want to be in a group, they just want to talk to me. And so I've had to learn how to create boundaries as well with my child, with my husband, with my mom, whoever I'm around, letting them know, like, this is as far as you can go. I will always help you. But people, like, want to come stay at my house for extended amounts of time.
Oh, wow.
Because their living situation was very stigmatizing. And I always want to give that support that I got to others, because I know that's not everybody's experience of their grandmother still understanding them, or family not treating you differently because you choose to take a shower at 3 o'clock in the morning versus at a normal time, because you think you're cross-contaminating the house or something. So yeah, I do think it planted a seed for my advocacy for sure.
And now that you are full on thriving, which is how I mean, I've heard so much about you, so much so that I thought you lived here in Orlando. I told you that. Talk to us about some of the campaigns that you've been a part of.
Yeah, so some of the campaigns I've been a part of, the very first one was with the Department of Health. It was called the Faces of HIV. I remember doing that when I was engaged. The premise was like they pulled a lot of people on a call. They asked who wanted to journal their life for 6 months, and then have it be public, of living with HIV, of like what everyday life looks like. And I was like, sign me up. I journal all the time. I'm getting married. I got great stuff to tell. So I signed up for that. I think 12 of us were selected. We journaled. They didn't tell us beyond the journal what else was going to happen. So we journal, and then we're asked to turn our journal in. I didn't turn mine in because I didn't want to. I wasn't done. They're like, okay, you can keep writing, but do you want to do this next phase of the campaign? And I was like, sure. So they asked us to come to a studio in St. Pete and take a picture. And so, like, it was a very somber picture. They told us not to smile. We had to look serious. They didn't tell us what they were doing with the pictures. They just asked us to take that picture. And, of course, at that meeting, do you have your journal? Oh, no, I left it at home. I don't have it. I had it. I was planning my wedding, and there was so much I wanted to put in there. So we do the picture. We get another call asking us to sign a waiver, because we're now told that our pictures are going to go on the side of a small semi-truck.
Oh.
It's not a semi. It was like, what's smaller than a semi? Like a bread truck?
Okay.
That makes sense.
Okay.
So these huge panels of our pictures, I think we were 4 on each side, was going to be traveling throughout the state of Florida, from Tallahassee to South Florida.
Nice.
And once the truck stops, the doors open, and it's like an art gallery. And so there's little stools. You walk in, and like another set of portraits are on the walls. There's a QR code, our journals, and the QR code goes to a video. Sorry, when we take the picture, we also did an interview.
Okay.
And so we're answering questions about our diagnosis and things like that. So people can go on this gallery and tap their phone and like instantly like almost have a conversation with us. And sometimes the truck would stop in our city, and so we would be in the truck. And so having experiences like that of like, I remember one guy, you could tell he was just very struck by the images on the outside. He stumbles up the steps into the truck. He's looking around at all our portraits. He starts crying. And me and another campaign participant were just standing there because we're just waiting to see. And he goes, "Are all these people dead?" And I got it because our pictures, like, they look like mugshots, to be honest. Like, we're not smiling. Like,
Okay.
they're nice, but they're sad. And so we looked at each other and we stepped forward, and I was like, "See this woman right here?" And my hair is natural. My hair was straight in the picture, natural in person, curly. And I was like, "That's me." He literally fell back. I was like, "What?" And then the person next to me, she did the same thing. And so we sat him down and we talked to him, and he was complete different version than what he was when he walked in. He was still crying, but he was so happy. He was like, this is amazing. So I've done campaigns like that of engaging and showing people it's not a death sentence. So the point was, this is what you think HIV looks like, but here we are living, thriving, beautiful lives. I've done a campaign like that. I've led campaigns, and I've been a part of, it no longer exists, Janssen. Positively Fearless was a campaign I was a part of, with 4 other people from throughout the U.S., and that was about bridging relationships with your provider.
Which is important.
Yeah, so it was about living with HIV positively fearless. Like, you get to name what's going on with you. The relationship with your provider is a relationship. It's not a dictatorship. They don't just get to come in and tell you, take these meds, don't take these meds, don't have sex, don't do this. Like, that's not all it is. You get to also ask questions and share your life and what the things that you need support on and build relationships. So we came up with like toolkits of how to talk to your provider. We did a lot of sessions where we would invite a provider to talk to us, and we would model what an appointment could look like when you're empowered and living positively fearless. So that was another one. And then one I've led is more of a policy side,
Okay.
around HIV criminalization. So it's HIV is not a crime, and I launched an awareness day to get people to talk more about what the laws look like in their states. So briefly, during the Reagan administration, when folks were trying to find resources and asking federal government for support, federal government's response was, yeah, we can give you funding to get research in your state or get funding for treatment and things like that. But also we got to figure out like how people are getting it. And so you need to put some laws on your books to protect people from getting this virus because they didn't have a name for it. So a lot of cases were happening at this point where people were being diagnosed through marriage. Their spouse had HIV and didn't tell them, type of situations. So a lot of state legislators were hearing these stories and put different laws on the books. So for Florida, it's a 3rd-degree felony. If I cannot prove that I disclosed my status to my sexual partner, and even with some judges to the point where I have to prove that they understood my disclosure at point of intimacy. These laws were written in Florida in 1986, and they have not been changed since. So the science around U equals U that you mentioned isn't considered in these laws. The fact that I'm even on treatment or that I use a condom means that I can't be trying to give it to you. That's not taken into consideration.
Wow.
Being virally suppressed, not being able to transmit, is not taken into consideration.
Wow.
It takes a lot of, for policy, for legislators, it's taking a lot of education to get the laws changed and educate prosecutors, law enforcement, even providers, because some providers will like release your medical records to law enforcement. So like there's advocates that work to keep that from happening legally as much as we can in this day and age. I get nervous talking about it, but that's the work I've been doing for the past almost 10 years. We have a coalition in Florida. That's probably where you hear more of me because that's the work that I do. A lot of amazing advocates in Orlando that support with that because you have to talk about prevention and policy, and you also have to talk about treatment and policy. So those are some of the campaigns around advocacy that I've tried to make my mark in making a difference from what it used to look like to what's possible in the future.
Kamaria, what a story you have. Like, you have quite the story, let me tell you. That's why when it kept getting put off our interview, I was like, listen,
Yeah.
I'll wait because you have a story to tell, so I'm willing to wait for
you.
this. So, but this brings me to our very last segment of the show. It's called Give Them Their Flowers. And I want to physically give you your
You're
flowers
so
in the form
sweet.
of cupcakes that are
This is
edible
so cute.
in a floral arrangement. But I want to give you your flowers
you.
for transforming your pain into purpose, using your struggle to stand up for yourself and others. Instead of becoming bitter or hardened, you've chose strength. Despite facing immense hardships, you continue to show resilience. I know this isn't easy, and I adore that so much about you. So
This
thank
is
you.
so sweet.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much. Like being able to talk with you. I don't know how long we've been sitting here, but I always tell my story because it's also a form of therapy for me. So being able to share helps chisel away this internal stigma as well that can build up in me. So thank you for listening and finding value in my voice. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.